Welcome back to another episode of the Nebraska Football Show. As always, I'm Tim Verghese, joined by Steve Marik. Steve, Nebraska's back in action this week with the new offensive coordinator. How do you feel?
Yeah, how about that? Never a dull moment in Lincoln, Nebraska, I guess, with the football program. But yeah, so Matt Rule announcing on Monday that, Dana Holgorsen, who was hired just last week, as an offensive consultant, he is now going to be calling the plays at USC and for the remainder of the season. So huge news, obviously. I mean, that's a massive kind of decision that Matt Rule just made in season, and he seems confident. And we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, that was some big news to, just bring in Dana Holgerson, have him look around at the place, look around at the roster. And Matt Rule said he asked Dana Holgerson, like, "Hey, you think you can do this?" And Dana's like, "Yeah, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that. I think I can do this." So it's so here we go. Let's get this show on
Yeah,
the road. It's going to be interesting.
yeah, I know. I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me just was Rule kind of stating, it kind of felt like with Dana's like he wouldn't have taken it unless he felt he could do something
Exactly.
with it, and I think that says a lot about the weapons that Nebraska has and the offense they can be, when you and I talked about this last week, we had discussed like all the different possibilities of what he could be, or what he could do within the offense and what he could change in these last 3 weeks. I, you and I kind of, I think we had a feeling there was a chance he might take play calling at some point, but we never thought it would be like publicly
Not
announced
this
or to
season.
this extent where,
Hmm.
1 week on the job, he's taking over play calling. Um, it's an unprecedented move. Is it like do you think it's a move where it's like you're kind of going all in on this move, or is it something, because the way I see it, if it doesn't work at the end of the year, you just part ways and you find new offensive coordinator. Like you basically restart this. You're probably going to be in the offensive coordinator market anyway. You
Hmm.
might as well try with the guy that's had established success somewhere because again, your goals are still on the table. I don't think this is like a do or die type moment for them. I think it's just trying to get the most out of the season while there's still like goals on the table.
Look, everybody wanted to shake up offensively, and this is the shakeup. If Matt Rule would have stood up there and said after the second bye week, "Hey, Marcus Satterfield is going to be calling our plays, blah blah blah. We had a great practice, blah blah blah." He feels good about the team, how they came out of the bye week. Everybody would like be up in arms and burning down the place. But like, what do you mean Marcus Satterfield is still calling the plays? So this is Matt Rule doing something about it. Like you said, Tim, with the goals still out there to reach. They need one more win to do something they haven't done since 2016, make a bowl. Um, and if you're going to do this thing, which is bring in a buddy and have him look around the place and decide for himself that he can do this, it's like Dana Holgerson is on that short list of guys that you allowed to do that and have that happen because he is very, very well respected. He's scored points wherever he has been calling the plays. So I think this is a positive. It's going to be a little weird, I guess, but he is who he is. He's Dana Holgerson. He is the air raid guy. He's going to come in here with his passing concepts, and he's going to run the football just like he's done several times before in his career. That's like Tim. That is the just one of the more annoying things that we have to just kind of deal with surrounding the program is when you bring in Dan Holgerson, everyone's like, "Oh my God, we're gonna run the air raid, like we're gonna be passing this football like 50 to 60 times." It's like, no, no, this is not Mike Leach. This is Dana Holgerson, and just like many other of Leach's assistants who have gone on and call plays at their own program, they have put their own twist on it, they have put their own style on it, and they run the ball much more than the late Mike Leach ever did. So it's not like Dan Holgerson is going to come in here and start throwing the ball 60 times a game. He's going to run the football, and he's going to do things on the field that the roster allows him to do. He's just not going to force feed something. He's going to look at who he has to work with and build an offense and call plays based off what the players can do. It's what he's done at all of his previous stops, and he's been pretty good at it. So I'm excited for what the offense is going to look like, and I think we are going to see some tweaks and some new wrinkles in there, and some just some core. We can go over this soon here, Tim, but some core passing principles of the air raid offense and just what those are.
Yeah, like the thing for me going back and watching, I've obviously we both watched Dana Holgerson offenses most of our lives at this point. Again, they've all been no, he's had again, like we said, some of the most prolific offenses in recent history. But watching those guys, and watching his offenses from this perspective, it is impressive how often he tweaks what they do based on personnel. Like they
Yeah, he
adjust,
changes.
he adjusts year to
He
year based on
adapts.
who the best weapons are in the offense,
Mhm.
how they find winning solutions. Like, you look at this offense right now and you look at some of his history, you're going to see some more manufactured touches to Ja'Cory Barney. You're going to
Sure.
see him become a more featured part because you look over the years, guys he's had success with are the Ja'Cory Barney types, the Tank Dells, the Tavon Austins, it's short, quick receivers.
Yeah, but also look at, at West Virginia when he was throwing, when he had Will Greer, David Sills. I mean,
Yes,
David Sills was a dude at like
dude.
6'4", six
Yeah.
foot five, over 200 pounds. Look at who Nebraska has on their roster. We have seen Isaiah Nayor and Jamal Banks make contested catches, not consistently, but they have that in them. More opportunities like that down the field for verts, things like that. That's why I'm excited to
I'll
see
tell
what
you
this
what
whole
it
the whole thing looks like.
yeah, I'll tell you what, watching David Sills again, I was like, you know what this reminds me? This reminds me of Jamal Banks.
Sure. Me too. Me
Yeah,
too.
like it's
Yeah, I mean,
very yeah.
there's going to be opportunities down the field, for, the guys that we saw from earlier in the season, saw that
Mhm.
stuff from earlier in the season, like Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair. And I completely agree with you on Ja'Cory Barney, Tim. Just, there's, I assume that we're going to be seeing a lot of mesh concepts, and with him as kind of that shallow cross guy. Stick routes to the field, 3x1s, 2x2s. Just because Dan Holgerson is coming in here, many people think, oh, well, tight end's not going to be used. No, Dan Holgerson has used a lot of 11 personnel in his career, and he's been aggressive as a play caller. And I asked Matt Rule about it on Monday, kind of what he likes most about Dan Holgerson's offense, and it's the fact that he has always been an aggressive play caller, and that kind of goes against what Matt Rule, as a defensive guy, has always believed, but Matt Rule thinks that that's a good thing. It's a contrast. It's a, you think this way, I think that way, and sometimes it can work out, in a very positive way. Just for Matt Rule being a defensive guy and bringing in just a straight up offensive guy, one of the most well respected guys, in college football, with scoring points and, moving the football and gaining yards and stuff. So I'm excited about this. I think there are pieces on the current roster that are going to flourish with this. Now, is it gonna? I don't know what we're gonna look at USC. This is just such a wild kind of thing to think about. Like, hire him, bring him in, one week, and then the next week give him the keys to the Corvette and say go. So that whole thing is a little bit wild. We'll see what it looks like, at USC, but Wisconsin, Iowa. Well, once these guys get some snaps under their belts with Dan Holgerson calling the offense, I think we're gonna, see some cool stuff.
Yeah, and two things on that. I think some people make something again of like hey, it's a quote unquote air raid offense, and what is that going to look like in the Big Ten? Can he adapt? You look at the opponents they've got ahead. Dana Holgerson's plenty familiar with coaching against Lincoln Riley. He's done it at Oklahoma. He did it at West Virginia. Did it at
Mm-hmm.
Houston. He's done it before. And then you go and you look at the other side. You look at the week ahead in Wisconsin. They run air raid.
Mm-hmm.
They know what this is. This like
Phil Longo is part of
yep,
that family.
part of that whole family. So it's not that unfamiliar. And I know people see air raid and they get up in arms. Essentially,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about concepts, and I know you touched on that. My perspective here is again, I don't know how much different we're going to see, but the good thing about a Dana Holgerson offense, about these offenses, from that tree in general, they just they make the easy stuff work. They take the check downs, they take the easy stuff, and it's not
It's
going to
quarterback
be
friendly.
Yeah, it's exactly. And it's going to be it's whatever he's installing, whatever new he's installing, it's not going to be that much because he wants his offense to have it mastered before they go out on the field on Saturday. So whatever new we're going to see, it's going to be
Hmm.
drilled plenty of times, and you're not going to see a whole lot. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of variation necessarily off of it. You're just going to see them spam a lot of the check down, the easy buttons, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, just kind of get good at at a limited amount of things that you want to be good at, and don't have this massive Rolodex and this massive playbook and try to do a whole lot of things. No, just like pare it down to two or three, maybe four concepts, and just go to town on it. And use tempo, vary that tempo, go fast, go slow. Defenses hate that kind of stuff. I don't know. I just think I'm really excited to see what this thing looks like. I wish, Dan Holgerson had maybe come in at the beginning of the season, so he had time to do all this and get everybody on the same page and do that whole thing. But it is what it is. He has 3 games left. He had a bye week to try to do this whole thing. So I don't know. We'll see what it goes.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess for you, what concepts are you expecting to see? What concepts are you hoping to see?
Just the core stuff. Like everybody knows the mesh. Four verts is very, very popular, and that's something that I'm really excited about with like the potential with Ja'Cory Barney too. Shallow crosses,
Thomas
stick
Fidone
routes.
pushing the seam. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still think Thomas Fidone could be a factor here. Everybody, just there's just a lot of talk about the air raid and how it doesn't use tight ends. Well, Dan Holgerson does. And I think he's going to be impressed with Thomas Fidone can do as a receiving threat and a blocking threat. I think Thomas Fidone has taken a little bit of a step forward in the blocking department this season. I know it's kind of weird to say considering Nebraska hasn't really had a consistent rush game, but I do think Thomas Fidone has gotten better in that area. But yeah, just the normal like mesh stuff. I mean, I read Mike Leach's book and he talked about how valuable of a play that can be and all the different things that you could do and how it's a man beater, it's a zone beater, four verts as well. So it's those are my kind of top two, I guess, if I had to pick a couple. It's all fun to talk about and kind of learn and read about. It's another thing to teach guys that, and these are concepts that like Nebraska has ran before. It's not like it's going to be completely foreign to these guys. It's like I've seen Nebraska run mesh before, and I'm sure they run a version of four verts or something like that. So, yeah, mesh four verts. What about you?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, like, yeah, it's more of that. Again, some flood concepts, some drive concepts, just some of that
Yeah.
stuff. Again, like there's levels beaters, like
Hmm.
give Dylan Raiola or Heinrich Haarberg, whoever the quarterback is out there, some
Hmm.
options. Yeah, and on that note, I you would think it opens up a little more with Dylan,
Yes.
if he's able to play. But obviously, that's another big question going to this week. Him coming off that injury, they're preparing Dylan and Heinrich. Obviously, with Dylan's background too, with all the different offenses he played in, all of that, he's more familiar, I think, with the concepts that are coming in and would be able to like talk to Dana and say like, hey, these are the concepts I'm really familiar with. I can
Yeah.
work with. How do we mesh these two together? I don't think Heinrich's at that level at this point just because of what he
No.
ran in high school and the
Hmm.
limited playbook he's had so far in his time at Nebraska as well. So I think you see a very different offense if Dylan Raiola's out there on Saturday versus Heinrich Haarberg. What are you expecting? I guess kind of turning this conversation to USC on Saturday. What are you expecting from the offense on Saturday?
Well, I still think that they're going to want to try to run the ball. They're going to try to want to establish a run. And if they do, that's obviously going to open up things in the pass game with the play action. Um, so that's kind of the big thing that I'm wondering about is how are they going to run the football? And USC they're allowing 22 points per game. That's 12th in the Big Ten. They're allowing I think it was over 130, a little over 130 rushing yards per game and over 4 yards per carry per game. So there's opportunity, and you would think that there would be opportunity. I should say you would think that there should be opportunity for Nebraska to run the football in this one. But as we have seen, the Huskers haven't really been at that consistent at running the football against defenses that we thought they would run the football against. So we'll just have to see which team shows up on Saturday, and that's kind of a scary thought because we don't know which team's going to show up. Is it going to be the Ohio State one that almost beat the Buckeyes? Is it going to be the Indiana one that gets run out of the building? We don't know, and that's scary. So yeah, the big thing for me when Nebraska has the ball, I know Dan Holgerson is the talk of the town and everything, and everybody's talking about the pass game, but it's still that run game. I think Dan Holgerson is really going to want to run the football. And, especially if it's Dylan Raiola, if he's good to go, he's probably not going to be at 100%. I mean, Matt Rule said, he's going to be, Dylan Raiola was going to try to practice on Tuesday. Keyword there, try to practice. So he has contusions on his back and spine from taking those brutal 2 hits a couple weekends ago against UCLA. So he's not going to be 100%. He's going to be sore out there. So they're going to want to protect Dylan Raiola if, in fact, Dylan Raiola is out there playing. So they're going to want to try to run the ball and not put too much on Dylan Raiola. If it's Heinrich Haarberg, completely changes the game. Obviously, they're going to have to do some different stuff and give Heinrich some read runs and stuff like that, and kind of turn that game into kind of like, I don't want to say a rock fight, but just run the ball, get the ball into Heinrich's hands, let him be an athlete, and move the ball that way.
For sure, yeah, and I was somewhat encouraged by what we saw from Heinrich late against UCLA of just like some of the
Sure.
placement stuff. He does look a little better as a thrower, so I wonder, But
Yeah.
again, new offensive coordinator, new play. How do they challenge him, and if it is him out there? So yeah, again, a lot unknown. I guess it makes it hard to predict the Nebraska end of this game, and
Yeah.
on USC's end too. They've got a quarterback
Yeah.
change coming off a bye week as well. And also a lot's been made about Lincoln Riley and what they've done this year. I was bullish on this new defensive staff, this retooled defensive staff that Lincoln's put together, and I think they've overall played well enough. It's offensively they've taken a step back where they can't put up the points that Lincoln Riley's used to. So when the defense takes a moderate step up, but the offense takes a sizable step back, you kind of meet in the middle where you're a worse team than you were because you don't have a world-beating offense like you have in years past. And so I'm curious to see what changes this week. What are you looking for when USC has the ball offensively? What are you watching?
Well, I think it's gonna, we talked about a little about this off air, Tim, is I'm sure they're with Jedimaeva starting, getting the start, his first start at USC. He was a Mountain West Conference Freshman of the Year last year at UNLV. He's a big kid, 6'4", 220 pounds. He's a dual threat, more of a dual threat than the previous starter, Miller Moss, was. So you'd have to think that Lincoln is going to get back to some of that QB run that did some good things for him at previous stops. Maeva is a much better runner than Miller Moss is, so I have to think that Maeva is going to get some read runs, kind of similar to what Nebraska might have to do if it's Heinrich Haarberg out there. Some similar concepts. Now I think Jada Maiev is a better passer. He has shown that he can really throw the ball. He passed for over 3,000 yards and 17 touchdowns last year as a starter, as a redshirt freshman starter at UNLV. He also ran for a little under 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. So this guy's going to be, running around a lot. I think so Nebraska's defense is going to have to be aware of that. He will extend plays and he has a big arm. Sometimes it's not the most accurate, but he can throw that thing. So it's going to be really fun to watch. I just think that more read run element type concepts are going to be used with USC and Jada Maeva. They're going to make they need a spark just like Nebraska's offense does, and so they're going to bring him in and have him run the ball too. So
For sure. Yeah, and this is a group that, they haven't had the most success this year, but that's a scary, scary pass catching room. That's a scary offense in general with how many different ways they can
potentially
threaten
scary.
you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Zachariah Branch,
Mm-hmm.
hasn't had the season, a lot of people hoped, and there's rumors about him potentially transferring after the year just because of fit and everything, but that's still one of, if not the fastest player in college football that, I've seen that guy run routes. It's a nightmare to try and guard him.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick anecdote. So I saw him in 7-on-7 a couple years ago. And it's kind of him on this team. His brother was there too, but it's kind of he's the superstar of the team. There's no one really else of that caliber, and they're going up against a team from Dallas that had a couple of different members of that South Oak Cliff team that won a state championship a few years ago. Malik Muhammad, now the starting corner at Texas,
Mm-hmm.
is basically the safety over the top. They've got Abdul Muhammad, his little cousin, who
Mm-hmm.
again, but Abdul never went. I don't think Abdul was playing college football, but at the high school level, he's like 5'6", 5'7". The nastiest corner you could imagine, just like in your face, jam. So they have Abdul basically pressing underneath. They have Malik shadowing over the top at safety, and then they have the other safety keeping an eye on it. They're basically triple coverage every
Triple
single time in
bracket.
7-on-7.
Uh-huh.
And Zachariah Branch is still finding ways to get open. This is a guy that, again, if you let him, he can punish you deep. He can turn short plays into explosives. He's a
Hmm.
terrifying individual, and he's not even my
Hmm.
favorite receiver. I'm gushing about him. He's
Hmm.
not my favorite receiver in that room. You got Deuce Robinson, who's a wide receiver slash tight end, also a high end baseball prospect. 6'6" is going to be one of those like massive matchup mismatches for Nebraska. I think you put
Hmm.
Deshaun Singleton on him when he's going deep just because of Singleton's size. My
Hmm.
favorite receiver is Jacoby Lane. I think Jacoby's got the highest ceiling. I think he
Yeah.
does so much so well. He's the best. He's got such incredible body control. A type of guy you kind of throw it up to and you trust he's going to come down with it. Just a really good feel, can beat you at all three levels, can win against the sideline, win across the middle of the field. Um, he's a dude. He's a dude. I'm a big Jacoby Lane guy, one of the more like athletic, acrobatic receivers I've seen coming out of the high school ranks. Yeah, this pass catching, this group, and then you talk about the running game, you talk about what they can present. You have two different styles of backs. They don't run
Hmm.
a big critique of Lincoln this year has been he hasn't run the ball enough. Does a bye week change that? Because they have the horses to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, and now they're going to be starting a quarterback who it might benefit them to run the ball more and have not have him throw as many passes as Miller Moss would, for example. But my guy to watch when USC has the ball, Woody Marks. He'll be starting at running back. He's a big guy, 5'10", a little under 210 pounds, hard runner. He's from Atlanta. He spent about 4 or 5 seasons at Mississippi State in the SEC. Very productive there, very consistent. This season, he has, I think it's, if I'm reading this right, 878 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. He's also chipped in with 37 catches for 260 yards. He has over 1,000, almost 1,500 receiving yards in his career. So he has played for Mike Leach at Mississippi State in that air raid system, and Mike loved to throw it to the running backs as well and use them as receivers. So Woody Marks has, so it makes sense that Woody Marks is in USC playing for Lincoln Riley in that offense. So he's my player to watch. I really like watching Woody Marks, just a super, super violent physical runner, downhill guy, but he's got some wiggle to him. Very productive at his previous stop, Mississippi State. So that's my guy.
Yeah, good looking back. That's one of those like,
Very.
yeah.
Mhm.
I've been very, very intrigued with the type of backs that Lincoln's taken since moving to USC. It was Marshawn Lloyd last year, another
Yeah.
big heavy dude from South
Oh yeah. Heavy
Carolina.
runner. Heavy
Yeah.
runner.
And yeah, he loves these SEC like these big heavy backs and
Mhm.
it's a good contrast to, what he's running through the pass game, but it works, and again, and Lincoln to his credit, he's gotten a lot of flack this year and there's a lot of talk about just his team in general. You could say whatever you want about him as a head coach and all of that. As an offensive mind, he's still one of the better ones in college football and a guy you have to be wary of every single week just because of what he could dial up and off a bye week especially scary. I'm a big fan of the other back in that room, Quentin Joyner.
Mhm.
He's more of the like I said, a bit of a change of pace back. Kind of can make some things happen through the pass game, can make some things happen on the ground. Yeah, I mean Nebraska's defense is going to have to be up for this challenge just because there's a lot
Yeah.
of people you have to account for on that can individually beat you in different ways on Saturday. Flipping over to anything else from you on the offense?
No, I was gonna go defensively. Let's talk about some defensive dudes here. My guy, that when Nebraska has the ball, and this goes along with me wondering if Nebraska is going to get a rushing attack going. A big, if they can do that, they're gonna have to have a good day against Gavin Meyer. And he's USC's best interior defensive lineman. He's a little undersized at 6'3", 290 pounds, but he really works well with what what he was blessed with. He's a really tough individual. He's been battling multiple injuries. I mean, if you look at him, he's got like big knee braces on both knees. He's got an elbow brace out there. He's just like just a dude who's out there battling. He's a transfer from Wyoming. He actually joined USC's team pretty late. It was after spring ball. And he's just I really like watching him. I think going to be leading the charge against for USC's run defense. He has 18 tackles on the season, 2 tackles for loss, only 1 sack, but he's leading the team with, or well, not leading the team, but he has like 8 quarterback hurries on the or pressures on the season. So he's shown that he can get in the backfield and be a disruptor. But USC's defense, it is what it is. They're not a ton of sacks right now. Their best defensive player, or one of their best, Eric Gentry, out for the season. So it's a defense that's not going to be racking up a lot of sacks, but it's just going to be one to kind of keep an eye on with that rush offense with Nebraska. Can they consistently help Dylan Raiola out? If Dylan Raiola is the guy, Gavin Meyer is my guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, their front, there's some guys on that line. Anthony Lucas was a guy out of high school, and he's been up and down this year. It feels like. Other side, Braylon Shelby is a. You look at the measurables on that kid. He's one of the freakiest like prospects I've ever seen. He's out of Houston, Texas, and a guy I really liked. But he's again just getting his feet wet in his first year, like kind of starting. So they've had up and down play, and they are again. I expected more from this unit just because of what I saw up front. I feel like they're not big enough. Like
No.
and
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 that goes
that's
with Gavin
yep,
Meyer. He's only 290 pounds. I mean, they're not huge up there. So that's why I think
yeah,
there's so much potential here for Nebraska to run the football on Saturday. But again, we've said that multiple times before and they haven't
for
done it.
sure.
So we'll see.
Yeah, and Gavin's one of those guys that I think he's a future pro, but it's like, yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
again, across that line, it's like they're just not as big as you'd think. They're not Big Ten big just yet, and
No.
and
Mm-mm.
Nebraska could be on the benefiting end of that, but to counteract
Could
that
be.
on the back end, they're very talented. They are a
Yeah.
very talented secondary, and it makes sense when you think about who they brought in as defensive coordinator, what the strength of that unit of his unit was. D'Anthony Lynn over at UCLA and the strength of his unit last year. They had a very good pass rush, but in the secondary they hold up real well. And so my guy this week, um, it's Kamari Ramsey, man. He's played
Yeah.
unbelievable this year. Like every time I watch USC, I feel like I'm drawn to Kamari Ramsey. And
Hmm.
he's kind of a do-it-all safety, can play over
Hmm.
the top, kind of be that center fielder guy, can come downhill and run the alley, can do so many different things. Excellent in coverage, excellent in man, excellent in zone, can do his thing, and a guy that Dylan Raiola is going to have to be accountable for. Dylan's thrown a couple
Yep.
picks recently, or if it's Heinrich, whoever's out there, you have to
Hmm.
be accountable for where Ramsey is on the field. Again, this is a guy I think is going to go top 100 in the draft this spring. I'm a big fan of Kamari Ramsey.
Yeah, he's fun to watch. Bigger guy too. You know me, Tim. I like my big safeties.
Yeah.
But another guy at corner, Jalen Smith too. It's kind of like a sticky cover guy. I really like the look of him. So I'm not saying don't throw at Jalen Smith and test him, but like whatever. We'll see. I don't know what we're going to be seeing on Saturday. That's
Yeah.
the fun of this whole thing. Who knows what we're going to be seeing?
Yeah, it's interesting. It gives you something to talk about. I mean, talk about, but
Yeah.
also watch for it. At this point, it's
Hmm.
like it would. Well, I wouldn't have put it past previous Nebraska staffs to just keep running out the same old offense, and we see kind of more of the same on Saturday, and they somehow find a way to win. But regardless, I think it's you want to see improvement offensively, you want to see them string some things together, you want to see some excitement, you want to see them push the ball downfield. Um, yeah, and again, like we said, everything's still on the table in Nebraska. This is an opportunity to go earn that sixth win. USC's been sliding
Yep.
as of late. They're trying to bounce back after the bye. Nebraska's trying to bounce back after the bye. It's a
They
fascinating
need two
matchup.
wins. They need
Yeah.
2 wins to go bowling. If Lincoln Riley doesn't go bowling, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, I know.
yeah, I mean it's a bad look. I mean, huge buyout, Tim, as you educated me on last time we talked, but yeah, it's just gonna be a poor look if USC's not in a bowl game.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, I again, what that means for him, we'll see. So again, their backs against the wall, Nebraska's backs against the wall a little bit.
Hmm.
We'll see who comes out on top. Any final thoughts from you on just what this matchup and what you're looking for on Saturday?
Boy, I mean, there's just the offense and Dana Holgerson's, kind of influence there. What does it look like? What kind of wrinkles do we see? What kind of new passing concepts do we notice, if at all? But yeah, but I just keep going back to the run game. Is Nebraska going to run the football and help out their potentially injured starting quarterback in Dylan Raiola? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, same for me. Just excited to see kind of what the offense looks like. And yeah, I mean, outside of that, I guess if anything for me is one final like game thought here. I'd like to see Johnny Hole get another chance. Just get him comfortable. See if they can get anything out of him there. Because there's talk that special teams is improved. We need to see it. So I haven't seen it consistently. So want to see more of that. But outside of that, I think we'll have more to talk about after the weekend. I'm assuming just on what we've seen and how that sets up for the rest of the season.
Mhm.
But I just need to see it this weekend. I just mainly just it's an unprecedented move, like we said, and I want to see what this looks like on Saturday and kind of like, hey, if this works out, how much does it work out? What's the ceiling of this offense? So kind of like there's so much ahead, I think, and so yeah, we'll see. For 3 games left in the year, it feels like a completely new team almost.
Yeah, I know everybody's kind of got a new life almost with this move, and you know what? That is a byproduct of Matt Rule's decision to roll with Dana. So everybody there's a little kind of skepticism about how this whole thing is going to work, just because it's not very common to see this thing at all. But on the flip side, it's like maybe it creates a little bit more energy, a little bit more juice, a little bit more confidence out there for the offense. So we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. We'll find out Saturday. So that'll probably do it for us here in Inside Nebraska. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel. Be sure to read all of our work over at Inside Nebraska. Steve's got a lot going up this week about Dana Holgorsen, about the offense and Nebraska ahead. Basketball season's fully underway. Steve's kicked off with that. And yeah, we've just got a lot going on over at Inside Nebraska. So be sure to tune in. Tune in for that. We will be back next week. And yeah, good. That signing off.